about games played in Japan. The first game is Junkin. Next slide, please.
So first, let's tackle about the history of Janken. Janken, or rock, paper, scissors in English, is a cultural keystone in Japan where most friendship disputes, disagreements, and predicaments are being resolved through the game's simple mechanics. Rock, paper, scissors apparently originated in China, or at least that's where the first historical mention of the game from, and is used sometimes in Western cultures to make mostly inconsequential decisions. It's the Japanese that elevated Junken to an entrenched form of social interaction, starting with a variety called Kitsuniken that used a similar rule set. This feature image depicts the trio of women playing the clocks version of the game. Two players choose between rock, paper, or scissors. Rock beats scissors, scissors beats paper, and paper beats rock.
Objectives. Number one, two players each choose between rock, paper, or scissors. Rock beats scissors, scissor beats paper, and paper beats rock. Number two is the first of 3 points wins the game. Next slide, please. These are the number of the players. When playing Junken, usually one person serves as not limited to two people as in the usual rock paper and scissors game. Another approach to play Junkin is that any player who does not display the same hand as a leader, regardless of the suit losses. Next slide, please.
For the court layout of Junken, Junken pawn can be played anytime, anywhere. What's paper? In the Japanese version of the game, rock is called gu, scissors are called choki, and paper is pa. Next slide, please.
So what are the rules of the game? Just like how you play rock, scissors, and paper, when playing Janken, Gu beats Choki, and Choki beats Pa, and Pa beats Gu. The Jang the Janken refer to the rock, paper, scissors respectively. When it is draw, it is called an Aiko. Next slide, please. So step 1 is called Shaisho Wagu. The way to start the game, at the start of the game, players will say Saishu Wagu and show their fist at the same time. The literal meaning of Shaishu Wagu is fist first. This is to make sure that all players show their gestures at the same time so as to prevent any unfair play. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So step 2, Jankenpon. So Jankenpon is a phrase to be chanted by the players together right after Shaishuwagu. It acts as a signal for the players to display their gestures. Players are to show their hands at the moment when they say pon. Next slide, please. So step 3, Aiko Desho. A draw in Japanese is called an Aiko. If there are only two players, it will be a draw when both players display the same gesture. If there are three or more players, it will be a draw when all three gestures are displayed. When this happens, the players then chant Aikodesho and display their hands again on Sho. This continues until someone wins the game. Next slide, please.
Values of the game. The game of junk is often used as a means to settle all manner of disputes, disagreements, debates, and pending decisions. This could settle questions such as who takes the last piece of cookie, who gets to go first, or who would pay for the check. Situations that require decision making are often resolved with Junken in Japan. Though the game is very simple, there are actually values in life that one can exercise through the game, such as fairness. As the game gives participants equal chances of winning, the players would have to play fair, but players would have to learn to accept the is in their favor.
So now we are going to proceed with Darumasan Gakoronda. Next slide, please.
The history of the game. There are many variations of the game and slight rule changes based on region or merely the group of people playing the game. One known variation is that in Osaka and the surrounding area, this game is called Bosan Gahe o Koita. An umibozu fell. Hindi po yan farted. Mali po yung pagka-input. Again, that is not farted, that is fell. Daruma-san Gakuronda is the Japanese version of the game's statues for at least 3 players. The name of the game means in Japanese, the Daruma doll fell down. Next slide, please. One person is chosen as the Oni or demon, which is the it. Then the remaining participants become the players. Before the game begins, a starting line is drawn, and the Oni stands at some distance away from the starting line, in front of a tree, wall, or other fixed object. The game begins with the players shouting Hajime no Ippo, or taking the first step. As this is shouted, the players on the starting line jump one step in any direction, but usually towards the Oni. Next slide, please.
Objective. To play this game, counting 1 to 10, the 8 says the Romata Gakuranda, which means the Romada fell over. So the other player should be able to get close to the 8 without being caught moving. Number 2, the 8 will face away from the other players, then say the Romata Gakuranda and quickly step. Number 3, the other players must freeze at that time. If one player is caught moving, he or she must touch the hands of the it without being caught. Number 4, another player should grab the back of the it and run away. When the it shouts Somare or stop, everyone should freeze. If one of them is no more than 3 steps from the it, the two shall switch places. Next slide, please. Number of players. The Rumasa Gakoranda is the multiplayer game similar to red lights, green lights, or statue, with a 3 or more participants. The game is played on the field. Next slide, please. Court layout. The Oni or devil in Japanese will face a tree or building to hide his or her eyes while the other players will stand in a line side by side 10 meters away from the Oni while facing its back. Next slide, please. The Rumasan Gakurunda is a game that does not require materials. The person who is it faces away from the other players with his eyes shut. It says Tarumasasan Gakoronda quickly, and then turns around as quickly as possible, opening his eyes while it is saying the phrase. The other player, the other players mu- must move closer to him. Just before it turns around, the player must freeze.
Rules of the game. One person is it. One person is it. Instead of counting to 10, it says Darumasan Gakoronda. In fact, there are 10 syllables in the sentence, which means that the Rumadal fell over. For the other players, the object of the game is to get close to whoever is it without him seeing them move. So the first step, the person who is the it faces away from the other players with his eyes shut. It says, the Rumasan Gakoronda quickly, and then turns around as quickly as possible, opening his eyes. While it is saying the phrase, the other players move closer to him. Just before it turns around, the players must freeze. Next slide, please. Step 2. If it sees a player moving, that player must hold hands with it. Step 3. If a player successfully reaches the it without getting caught, he or she slaps the it on the back. Then everyone except the it runs away. However, if the it is holding hands with one or more captured players, the attacker tries to break their hands apart with the side of his hand. Then everyone except the it runs away. Step 4. When the it shouts tomare or stop, everybody must freeze. Step 5. If the it tags one of them after asking how many steps to move forward, the attackers, the tool switch places.
Values of the game. Next slide. Focus. In the game, players exercise their focus and control to successfully reach their goal. Thanks to this symbolism, the Ruma is commonly regarded in Japanese society as both a good luck charm and a constant reminder of one's goal.
Tapos na? Baka may tanong ang classmates nyo. Cater nyo lang.
May
Review ko po, sir.
demonstration video po.
Okay. Sige.
Opo.
Mura nagtago-taguan yata
Demonstrate.
eh.